Rear lunges are probably the most dreaded exercise. That, step-ups, any type of single leg anything. One of the most common complaints I hear from people who are trying to exercise, get started, or have tried before is they always complain of knee pain. And rightly so, because a lot of times the form, if it's not done pretty much exactly correctly in the beginning, there's going to be some knee pain. And we want to avoid that at all costs, and it is avoidable. But if less you do the other stuff, that's why in my new beginner workout, we work on getting the strength built and the connection strengthened to the muscle that's supposed to be doing the job. So there's a lot of focus in the beginning on learning how to really feel the hamstring and glute muscles. And then also too, how to stack correctly in your pelvis. Because when you go to attempt a rear lunge, right, if you go down and everything that you're doing, right, when you go down is pushing so far forward into your knee, and you already have a knee that has been traumatized or is sensitive, yes, it's gonna hurt and it's gonna be discouraging. And that is not pain that you should be pushing through. So for our clients in the beginning, we use a lot of assisted work for a lot of the leg lunges, the step downs, any type of single leg work. We use something that they can hold on to. Because it is really hard to position yourself in the back of your leg, in the posterior chain. We're so used to being anteriorly pressed forward that then the glutes and hamstrings tend to fall asleep, and they're not used to learning how to stabilize on those muscles. And using something assisted in the beginning is going to be really helpful. So for a rear lunge or a split squat, right? There's the difference between a rear lunge is a rear lunge has movement, right? A split squat is static, okay? But honestly, the difference between these right now isn't the big issue. What is the big issue is learning how to stabilize on the back of your leg when you're going down into a lunge or stepping down off of a box. So one of the first things that I do for clients is teach them how to actually move their body in a standing position using their hamstring and glute. So for example, you can hold on to the cage, right? And then let's say you're gonna go down into the back of this, okay, lunge. If you go down and your chest is upright like this and my knee is pushed really far forward, for me, it's not gonna be a problem. It doesn't hurt my knee, but it's not ideal. It's not what it should feel like. But a lot of people, I'll see them go down like this and I'll say, what do you feel? Right? And they'll say, oh, I feel this back leg back here, right? My quad. And I feel like the front of my knee. I feel something here, right? But what we want to learn is how to shift back onto the muscles that we want to carry the load more. Yes, a lunge and a step up involves our quads, is a quadricep exercise, but it also involves our hamstrings and glutes. And often the quad is bearing so much of the load. Not only that, because when we go down, if we have an internal or external rotation of the knee, right, then we notice that some muscles aren't working the way that they should. So if you break this movement down into something so simple and so small, and you learn from the ground up how to actually get your glute to move you, something like this. You're gonna hold on, you're gonna go down into this position, right? In this position, you should start to feel your glute. If you do not feel it, right, then you need to kind of look at your foot position, be like, how's my foot? Do I feel most of this on the front of my foot, or can I feel my heel contact? So my heel contact has to be there. I don't want my foot to be completely lifted up. I want to feel my big toe connection point, my little toe connection point, okay, and my heel. Then you can ask yourself, am I putting more weight on my leg that's a little bit bent in the back, or is more of my weight on the front leg? Another thing to ask yourself is my rib cage stacked or am I extended? Okay. Another thing to ask yourself is, am I sloping down? Am I getting sway backy? Because if I'm getting sway backy, I'm going to feel my quad. And then I'll say, stand up, and people will go like this, and everything starts to move and shift. So this is often a reason why Single leg work is so difficult for new beginners. And I think they put these videos out there on Instagram like, oh, you do these lunges and you do this and you do that. Like it's so simple, but it's not simple. It's like asking me to take an Excel sheet and do conditional formatting to make sure that I would have to sit there and I'd have to Google that, and I'm sure I could do it, right? But I'm not going to be able to do it just like that. And so for people that are starting to learn how to exercise and women are trying to learn how to get stronger, if you're going from never feeling these muscles just into a lunge, you're going to have a hard time. And it doesn't mean you're doing anything wrong. It just means that your body has to learn, right, a new pathway on how to do this. So what to do? First thing, start holding on to the cage. Let yourself shift back. I even tell clients, keep this leg off the floor, the one that's not supposed to be working. Hang out here for a second. Take a breath in. Get my rib cage to connect a little bit to my pelvis. Then I can take the back of my hip capsule here, press it out a little bit. Make sure that I'm leaned over, so I'll say nose over toes. If I'm like this, my quad's gonna be doing a lot more work versus my glute. My knee is gonna be doing a lot more work just from the change in distribution. So when you get down here, okay, come into this position, and I suggest take a video of yourself to make sure you're not like this, right? To make sure that you could feel, right, that this backside of my glute hamstring is pushing back. And then I feel that, and then just move just a little bit, right? And notice, is it this area of me moving, right? Or am I using momentum, right? Am I using my rib cage to pull me up? Because if I'm using my rib cage to pull me up, I'm never teaching my glute how to push me up. So the beginning stages of doing any sort of single leg work is so important that you break it down to the smallest bit. And if this is hard, if you're like, I have a really hard time with this is really hard, please don't feel bad, because a lot of times the clients in the studio have a really hard time with this. And I'm usually moving their position so that they can feel like exactly where their weight load should be, right? And you're gonna have to figure this out when you don't have somebody guiding you in that way. So when you do that, that's why it's important to have a type of something to hold on to. So then when you're here, right? And sometimes they'll say, just wait, right? And the movement may be so little. And then all of a sudden people will go, oh, that's what it feels like. I'm like, that's what it feels like. And sometimes the upper body looks really weird in the beginning. And giving so many directives to help somebody try to find what it's supposed to, a perfect lunge is supposed to look like, is often so overwhelming from the get-go. So sometimes we have to work with what we see in the beginning with the lower body, and then as they get more confident in that, then we can start adjusting what happens in the upper body. But a common problem that I see with that from the beginning is when they find the right thing and I'll say, okay, stand up straight, they immediately go into extension with their rib cage because they don't know how to stand up straight through their back without having their rib cage extend forward. Okay, so single leg work is really very challenging, and it's something that you want to go slow on, and sometimes using a box could be really helpful to practice doing something called a step down. Sometimes, for some reason, stepping down off of a box sets people up more correctly, and that looks like this. I have had my studio for about 15 years. And this is probably one of the first pieces of equipment I ever bought. And it looks like it, to be honest. I mean, it's like so old, but it's done its job for the longest time. So, but if you have anything like this, you can get these off of like Amazon. You can get new ones. You can probably find really used ones in a Facebook marketplace or something really cheap. But they have the stackable risers, and this is really helpful because we don't want anything too high right now. We want something just high enough. So you can set that up as your step down. And I love step downs for new beginners. Love, love, love them because they really help the person understand how to lower their pelvis, right? And this is for, right, teaching you from the ground up. It is so easy to train somebody who is trained already or train a bull, right? But getting somebody to feel all the muscles they're supposed to feel correctly and getting them to move correctly, that is hard, right? And honestly, that's our specialty, is making people super trainable so they can do amazing things. But in the beginning, sometimes all that upfront work in the beginning, I tell everybody, imagine you're authoring a bestseller. Nobody knows you're creating this. All they know is that you're doing some sort of work and they're not seeing the change. And then all of a sudden you come out with your bestseller, right? And it becomes, you know, a top hit. And people are like, oh my God, that's amazing. And they think you just did this overnight. Like it was just something that just happened. There's so much work behind the scenes, right? To getting somebody to know how to move biomechanically correctly. It is not something, it's very small percentage, I would say, that are intuitively gifted with natural biomechanical movements that just work. And they become the Michael Phelps of the world, the Serena Williams. And even them have to do so much work just to be great at what they're doing, right? But yes, they're talented athletes, right? Most people are not, but you can learn to become a great mover, and then you can learn how to then therefore strengthen the areas of your body you need to strengthen. So on your step down, so here I am on this step, okay? And use something to hold on to. Don't not have something. Don't try to do this without holding on. At home, you can use a countertop, your kitchen countertop. You can use a railing of your stair, something that you can grab onto that you can then allow your body weight to sit back, right? So when you're here, don't try to touch the floor with your back foot. Just keep it up. Right? And then try to notice, and I'll tell people, your two hip bones here, they're like headlights, okay? And they should have to work strong to not just drop down, okay? So when you come up, you're gonna hold, and then you're just gonna hold enough that you feel the back of your leg, and then slowly press up, okay? And when you do this, then you also wanna notice that my knee does not, okay, just shift forward. If my knee constantly just shifts forward, right now, it would cause you knee pain. But when you learn how to stabilize on your leg correctly over time, that would not cause knee pain. So it's not that it's wrong to have knees over toes, it's not wrong. But in the beginning, when you don't know how to stack correctly and carry your weight correctly, it can make your knee hurt. So you want to wait on that. So when you're in this position, what you want to look for is, am I able to feel this back part of my leg? And then if you can take a video of yourself, you want to look, is my pelvis slumping down like this? Because if my pelvis slumps down like this, yes, my knee is going to hurt. So then I want to feel, can I take this part and push this back? Okay, so I'm pushing this part here. This is my posterior hip capsule. It looks like my glute, but it's really not. It's my posterior hip capsule, and I'm pushing that part back. And if you want to, you can even rest your foot, the other one that's not working, you can rest that on the box very gently, not enough to bear weight on it, right? But when you're down here, and if you take that hip capsule and you press it out while you stay connected with your stack, then you're going to start to feel your glute muscle. And then I'll tell people, I'm like, push, stand up, stand up, stand up, stand up. And they'll get to here, and I'll say, stand up, and they'll do this. This is so funny. They'll be like, right? And I'm like, no, 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 don't do that, right? You have to feel your glute push you all the way through. Don't let your glute be left behind, right? Because a lot of times we'll stand up, and we stand up through extension of the rib cage instead of letting our glute push us all the way up. And then once you get this feeling correct, and if you take enough time and you go slow, then I would say then continue with your step downs and focus on keeping your pelvis super stable, that your hips are not shifting, right? Look down, make sure that your knee is in line with your foot, that it's not turning inside or turning outside. You want to watch your lines and angles, right? Because that's going to matter in what you feel. One of the big mistakes that I notice that people do whenever they descend down into either their rear lunge or their step down is their hip will drop. So they'll have this unevenness, right? And you don't want that. You want your hip or your pelvis to stay square and stable, and learn to lower down with a stable pelvis. And when you do that, you're gonna feel your glute work so much harder. But in the beginning, for very brand new people, doesn't matter what age you are, very brand new people, if you can take your time on like single leg work, lunges, step ups, step downs, don't be doing the fancy stuff, walking lunges and all this and that in the beginning. Learn how to make these muscles work. And you're gonna get so much farther, so much faster when you do that, because you have to remember these are untouched parts. These are glute areas that really have never done the work the way they're meant to. And if you take your time and do it, then you're gonna be able to build from there instead of hitting that wall that you're like, my knees hurt, I can't go any further. It should not feel that way. Okay, so I suggest doing this on both sides. Just start with like 3 sets of 5. Start with noticing first. Start with saying, do I feel the right thing? What do I feel? Don't just do the reps and the sets, okay? Notice on what you feel. Is my glute muscle moving me, okay? Is my pelvis sloped down, right? Or can I press it out? Like, where am I, right? Am I here or am I here? Am I here? Because that's not good, okay? Or am I here? Okay, then I can load correctly. Is my feet pressed into the platform, or is my heel lifted up, and am I using my toe? All of these things really matter for what you feel when you're about to do the exercise. But step downs or lunges, those come after you've become really good at doing the other exercises on the floor, and that you can really feel your glutes working. Right? Then from there, you can advance to other aspects, right? A hip thrust that advances. This becomes a step up. This becomes a lunge. This becomes a walking lunge. This becomes a high step up. But in the beginning, you have to learn how to just get that muscle to move your body. So take the time, okay? There's no rush. There's no race to the finish line, right? And likely, the tortoise tends to win the race more than the hare, right? Sometimes the slower you go, you actually get there faster. So you'll be very surprised. So I hope you take my advice on this and then download my beginner workout, right? Because all the information's in there, and use these videos along with it. And then along with that download, there'll also be some other videos in there as well.